Hi everyone, welcome to Value. So today we're going to look at Virgin Galactic, and this company has kind of been up and down for a while now. It's at $25.68, and it's probably a price tag we didn't think we'd see ever or for a long time, because they had their official launch and sending Richard Branson into space, and we thought that was going to be the milestone. The thing is, it was the milestone, but it was the big question of what's next, and a lot of people sold out because they didn't know what else would be happening, because their commercial launch isn't until next year. So I don't think the stock comes back as strongly until that commercial launch. But in the meantime, they are still planning flights. They did plan their flight for the Italian military at the end of the month or the start of next month, but that has been grounded by the FAA. So the FAA has kind of looked at their last flight and gone, hey, you've actually flown outside your allowable airspace. So we're kind of concerned, and we want to look at why that was the case. Virgin Galactic seems relatively at ease about the situation. They said it was more about just the wind blowing them off course, and then they managed to correct it, and they were successful in their flight. So I think that was the main thing. They were successful in their flight. The thing is, during their live flight, FAA was watching the live flight. So if there was a concern, they would have flagged it there as well, but nothing was actually cited in the reports. So I think the concern was not as big at the time, but I think they're looking at the current data, and they're just going, hey, we probably should look at these things so that we just cover our basis, that hey, there is data that shows you're outside your allowable airspace. And why is that a dangerous thing? Because there is a lot of planes flying around the different airspace, and if you fly outside of it, no one's able to control what's in that pathway, so potentially it can be quite dangerous. But if Virgin Galactic can prove and that it was just a one-off, that this will not happen in the future, I think they're going to be cleared of the investigation. But investigations themselves do take a fair amount of time, but in the scheme of things, I think it's relatively okay. At the end of the day, the aircraft itself does not have a technical problem, but as at least we can assume based on the current situation, based on a successful flight. The biggest question is, was the wind particularly strong, and does this happen again? Like, is this to do with the aircraft? If the wind is able to blow it off course, can strong winds in the future also blow it off course? Does that affect their future decisions when it comes to deciding if they should do flights on that particular day, given the particular wind patterns? Or is it just more of a situation where they should adjust how they fly in terms of their positioning, and we're in that allowable airspace, because they could have been flying on the edge of that allowable airspace, and the wind just blew them a bit further, and then they managed to just go across the boundary by a little bit. So there's some questions to be asked there, but apart from that, everything looks like it's gone on fairly well in the last flight, and that they should be on course to do their next flight after the investigation is finished. Investigations themselves does take a amount of time, and no one loves the word investigation. Whenever I see a stock and there's the word investigation, it always makes me nervous, because why would you have to investigate something if there was nothing wrong? Clearly there is a little bit of wrong here, at least. So it is normal for an investigation to happen. But apart from that, I think once this clears and are flying again, share price should be seeing some positives going ahead, and I think there's going to be more positives next year. So it's already September right now, and it's really not that far to January or February when they do the commercial launch. So once that happens, I think the share price is going to do very well. As we can read in an article here, Virgin Galactic is currently grounded while the FAA conducts an investigation into a recent flight, but one Wall Street analyst is out with a note saying the grounding is likely to be short-lived. So I think that's always reassuring, and I think that's what the analyst community also sees, that hey, the flight was successful. I think we got to focus that the flight was successful, and they would not be planning a second flight with the Italian military so soon if they didn't think if they thought there was something wrong, they wouldn't be planning a flight so soon. So as they say, even after Virgin Galactic resumes operations, investors need to be concerned about reputational risk. So that's one thing, when you get investigated by the FAA, that is always a concern for investors, because no one likes any company to have any mishaps or wrongdoings. We all want to invest in great quality companies with zero problems going ahead. I think at the end of the day, like, this is a company run by Richard Branson. Richard Branson, he is a guy that conducts himself in a very reasonable and reliable way. Particularly in a realm of business, you got to have that trustworthiness, and I think he does make sure that Virgin Galactic does operate in such a way. So based on the current facts of how everything is, I wouldn't say there was that big of a concern. I think there is just a delay in terms of how things are happening, in terms of when the next flight could happen. I think when news articles read Virgin Galactic is grounded until further investigation, I think that can make an investor nervous, because if you're grounded, you can't fly, what happens next? But at the end of the day, like, again, this is just an investigation. These guys have been in the air like so many times that I'm sure they're aware of how their aircraft flies, and if there was a major problem, they would have cited it by now, rather than continuing to plan another mission ahead. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like, personally, I don't see too big of concern, but of course reading those headlines does make you a little nervous, but I don't think there is anything to be nervous about. Everything else looks alright. There is an earnings update in November, so perhaps that's going to shed some light, and hopefully that investigation is going to be over by then. If not, the company can answer some questions, and I think you can do further judgment based on that. But I think these things are normal. I think the FAA, like, if they saw the data and they didn't do anything about it, and in the future something did go wrong, then I think there is going to be questions asked of the FAA. So that's one thing that they're doing just to cover themselves, that they made sure that, hey, we saw some data that was wrong, so we just needed to check up on this as an investigation. Because during the live flight, FAA is present and they are watching. So the fact that it's gone outside of the airspace and then they corrected it, I think at the time no one saw it as a big problem, but I think the FAA's looked at the data, because that is their duty. They look at the data, and basically they've seen something wrong on the data and they have to chase it up. Like, if you see a problem and you don't chase it up, potentially that could be your job at the end. If someone doesn't chase it up and something goes wrong, that person has lost their job. So to make sure their job is safe, they're going to chase it up. That is very, very normal for them to chase it up. So I think this is just happening on a procedural basis. I think I would trust the company in their judgment that things are all right, that it was more or less something that's happened on their, they've just been blown off course. And I think that's pretty normal for planes, that, hey, wind patterns can have effect on the flight path. But I think their thing is they just have to reassure the FAA that in the future this won't happen. Let me know what your thoughts are, or if you've got any questions, post below. Until then, next year is really not that far off. They're going commercial. There's a lot to be excited about for this company. Until then, good luck investing, everyone.